right, everybody, we're shifting gears a bit. So joining us on set now is first-time author Stuart Ramon Fortuné, and he's here to tell us about his book, From Ibadan to Helyard. Yeah, that's the book there. Let me take my fingers off. Yes. Mr. Fortuné, thank you very much for coming this morning.
You're welcome, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Good morning to all the viewers.
Of course. Tell us about the book.
Well, the book basically is about identity and resilience, and so the book From Ibadan to Helyard, it would have covered the journey from Africa, Ibadan in Nigeria. Well, before it was known as Nigeria, it would have been the Ayo Empire. So it would have followed the journey from there to Helyard, which is in Dry River. So it's basically, it was done as a soap opera sort of style. So it's the family of the slaves and the newly emancipated, and this family of the slave masters and the plantation owners, and so it'll carry them from 1830 straight up to independence. So it will show you, from reading the book, you'll have an understanding of the history of Trinidad, from the sugar harvest, riots, Camberley riots, the emancipation itself, the advent of the steel pan, the different iterations of it, how the steel pan itself was rallied, was used to rally people to the voting booths to gain independence. So the whole history from the start to independence, and it's a cultural story, you know, how people fight to maintain their identity after they gain independence, because the emancipation, because they're newly free.
Yeah.
So you'll be partying, you'll be having a good time and celebrating your freedom, but at the same time, with that happening, there's no labor supply for the plantation. So there was always this back and forth trying to get the people back to work, and these people trying to enjoy and maintain their freedom. So that's what the book is basically about in a nutshell.
But why did you feel that it was necessary? Because some of the things that you have told us there are a number of history books and publications and so on. I'm seeing the spin that you're putting on it. But why did you feel that there was a need for this book at this time?
Well, firstly, I didn't know the book I was going to write.
Yes.
I was looking, it was during the COVID pandemic. I was looking at Netflix, looking at Vikings, Barbarians, Samurai, and looking at all these other countries, how they depict their myth of their history. So I was like, what is Trinidad's own? What would it look like if it were to be depicted on screen? Not just a history text of 1834 this happened, 1830 this happened, you know, as an actual story on the screen. So that's where I started. I started with the research to see what our history would have been, and I built the story on the actual research. So I didn't go into it with an idea of this is what I'm going to write, or this is going to be the outcome. It was really exploring it, and based on what the data gave me, that's the story I wrote. Obviously, I had to create some characters to let the story flow. It's about 3 generations, as I said, from like 1813, 1815 or so to 1962. So I had to create some characters and some families to have it pass forward from generation to generation and show how the back and forth continue to occur. So I didn't go into it with an idea, this is the story I'm going to write at all. It just so happened that that's the story that came out. Yeah. You know?
Is it that you would have written it in a sort, well, let me put it this way. Is the book for a particular demographic? And when I say demographic, is it for a particular age of persons, or is it that it has been written in such a way that it would be palatable to young people, teenagers?
Well, that's the thing. I didn't want to have a history textbook. As I said, there are history textbooks. So it's really a novella. When you read the story, depending on your speed of reading, it takes about 2 to 3 hours. But after you read the story, you have a full understanding and a full idea of the history of Trinidad and Tobago, from the cultural aspect and the back and forth as well. Yeah. People don't know that they had Gulf. In the Gulf, there were warships after the Camberley riot the following year to prevent another Camberley riot. People don't know that's when the police in Trinidad started to get the big guns and so. And how all of what we come to know as Trinidad, how all these things developed over time. So I didn't want to write a history text. I wanted it to be a flowing novel. Right. You read it and you get the full history. It's really targeted towards, obviously, diaspora, Trinidad, African diaspora. I'm also having it in conversation with some people at UWI. I don't want to give you names away, but to really put it into the cultural studies program. So
it's also historically factual.
Yes, it is. In fact, one of the guys who was getting some feedback from when I mentioned, I asked him, who was your favorite character in the book? And he told me, Sonny. And when I sent him a picture of the real Sonny Roach, he was in awe. You know, he asked me, he said, so these are real people? I said, yeah, real people did real things back in the day to try and fight and maintain the freedom of the people. And obviously the battle wasn't won, but I just believe that right now is a good time to have the conversation and let people try to reconcile and bring people to the table and hopefully unite Trinidad as it was supposed to be.
Yeah. How long did you take to write the book?
I'm a first-time author, and it took me 2 years from idea to completion, so it didn't take that long as a first-time author.
2 years, it didn't take that long?
Well, 1 year was COVID, right? So that year I didn't tackle.
I understand that it has been added to the President's Library?
Yes, that was a big surprise and a huge honor. So 2 days ago, I dropped it off for them. We've been corresponding, and it's now part of the President's Residence Library. So it will be there in perpetuity. Future heads of states will have access to it, their families, anyone who visits there. It will be available for them to read. So that's a huge honor.
Yeah,
I'm very thankful for that.
There's a particular passage that you tell me that
it was page
you're
101.
Yeah.
Bottom of 101.
The sum?
Yes, right.
The sum was no small feat, but it didn't take long for the community to rally together to raise the necessary funds. Within days, the $5,000 was swiftly donated, and the fund had close to $11,000 as collections were taken by civil servants and employees of businesses. Jacob was awestruck as he observed the incredible cooperation that PAN had brought to the nation. He couldn't help but marvel at how his vision of a unified steel band movement had blossomed into a massive national cause, and he took note of the outpouring of generosity from the population. He now knew that TASPO was not just representing themselves, but the entire nation, regardless of race or class, and that the PAN had spawned a new kind of Trinidadian. Why was this paragraph so significant for you?
Well, Republic Day is coming up. In fact, we had Emancipation Day, we had the World Steel Pan Day, we had Independence Day, and now Republic Day. So in the context of the time that we're in right now, I just wanted to remind people that through the PAN, that was the creation of the Trini, what we know as the Trini. Before that, we just had segments in Trinidad. We had the Indian segment, the African segment, Syrian, different segments. But when TASPO was trying to gain the funds to go to Britain in 1951, for the first festival, Steel Pan wasn't known internationally as yet, and the government denied them the funds. They went around on a plan to raise the funds from the population called Operation Britain. So that was the first time that people across races, across cultures, across society actually united towards one common goal for the Trinidadian benefit. And when they were leaving on the SS San Mateo to go to Britain, and they looked back at the port, it was all the colors, the races, everything on the port wishing them well to leave. So that was the first time they had a Trinidadian unified goal for the benefit of Trinis. So before then, that's why I wanted to read it, because people need to understand how important the steel pan is to the development of our nation. Without the steel pan, we'd be a different country entirely.
Yeah. What do you hope would be the takeaway from persons who do read this book?
My main thing is people need to know their history. People tend to believe that the history belief starts when they were born. You have a mother, you have a grandmother, it goes back. Your history doesn't start when you were born. So it will generally give the people an understanding of where they came from, the journey that their forefathers would have taken, the sacrifices they'd have made, everything they'd have given up, whether it was patois and a lot of their different cultures, to be integrated into the society.
Yeah.
So I want them to understand the journey, the sacrifices, and how important their role is moving forward as well. I mean, some of these same communities that are red zones or whatever they call it, the hot zones, these are the hotspots. These are the communities that were fighting to maintain the freedom of Trinidad. For instance, Helyard and Dry River, Trinidad All-Stars. They were instrumental. So from the book, you gain the whole history. You hopefully will understand better what Carnival represents, what Camberley represents, and how you can move forward with an understanding of yourself, making better decisions moving forward.
Yeah. We just have about a few seconds again. Where can people get this book?
Well, it's available on Amazon as Kindle and as a paperback. I have an app called Ondigo TT, which is also available on. And you could directly contact me via social media, and I'm doing deliveries, so you could get your copy signed.
Yeah.
Yes.
What?
In fact, I believe that one is signed to you.
Yeah, seeing that. But you know, someone is saying in studio, why the serious face of this child?
Because it's, to be frank, it's a serious life, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at the face is supposed to show the passion, the pain.
Yes.
Also show that there's a lot of possibility. You know, there's a lot of pain in the world right now, and it has to stick with the theme of the story. It has to be real, and what, as he noticed in his mind, he's thinking about the movement of the steel pan.
Yeah, Mr. Fortuné, thank you very much for coming this morning.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.